Going to your primary care doctor is supposed to be an experience that you save for being sick or injured. I think that the benefits of seeing a good primary care doctor now that's knowledgeable are also to prevent a catastrophic occurrence. When you get a checkup, it's supposed to be history taking, and I think history taking is very important. So if you have somebody that rushes in and rushes out, takes the information that the nurse asked, I would steer clear of that kind of doctor. There's so much information that we can extract from you the proper way, and then there's information we can get from the way you answer. And it's up to the doctor to take the time and ask the proper questions. Once we have enough questions, we'll do a physical exam. Once that's finished and we confirm our suspicion, we'll do certain blood tests. There are some standard blood tests that are okay, I guess, but usually if there's a suspicion of a disease process or impending doom, there's always going to be a better test to get, a more specific test, before getting into the specialist's office. Now, for my average middle-aged person, I usually will have great enthusiasm for a lifestyle change when there's a threat. Like, for example, if I tell my patients, okay, got your blood test, got your history, you're overweight and you have a high cholesterol. And what are we going to do? Usually the response from most of my colleagues is to put you on medicines. I firmly believe that you can use nutrition to change around the way blood test results come up. You can also use lifestyle change to change around what happens later on. It's only after doing conservative treatment that I give prescription medicines unless there is imminent danger very quickly. And if you have an impending heart attack, I'm not going to tell you just take omega-3 fish oil, increase your fiber, maybe red yeast rice. I would usually tell you we have to go straight to guns. You got to go to the heavy stuff, expecting that there might be a side effect or two, but we have to take away imminent danger quickly. You have to neutralize it. That doesn't mean you will forget those conservative measures. You still have to do that as well. If you look at heart disease alone, usually that's what everybody's worried about. And that's the beautiful threat that I can sometimes use to have my patients manifest change, to adopt a new lifestyle change. The unfortunate problem I'll get is that usually if you use threat to be the incentive, usually threat fizzles out after a while and the incentive is gone. That's typical for the New Year's resolutions. You have this gung-ho idea, I'm going to do it this year. I'm going to lose 5 pounds. After the stress of the new year and it turns, your vacation's done and you get back into work and there's a ton of work because of the new year, usually the threat is considered as a low priority and we get back to bad eating again. So I like to empower people with giving them specific changes or designing specific activities, specific relaxation practice, specific nutritional practices that would pertain to them. Everybody's a little different. If you are hesitant to go to your doctor's office because you're afraid your co-pays are going to be too heavy and you want to search online, there's a lot of great information on the internet, but there's also a lot of very dangerous information on the internet. It is my job and your primary care doctor's job and your specialist's job to not only find what is going to happen to you or predict what's going to happen to you and try to design a way to postpone that till you're 90, but also to help interpret information and questions for you. If that information comes from the internet or from a novel that you read or from a book or from a relative that said, hey, you should look into this, then it's up to your doc to kind of give you either a pat on the back saying you did find something good, or to disqualify it and say it's not worth investigating or investing any time or effort in. So it keeps, I think of that as keeping me on my toes, and that's what in the 90s my patients used to bring in big thick folders on stuff they found. And the internet was just starting up at that point, but I'd have to check everything, and it made me look into going to this store called Whole Foods. It was a new store. I didn't know anything about it, but it just opened up in Wheaton, and that's where I got some of the beginnings of making my own changes personally. It also empowered me to kind of look into, well, is this information good, or who is this guy Andy Weil? So I think to make the change, well, number one, most Americans have to make a change. If you're making a change because you have a wedding or a vacation coming up, that's okay. It's still a goal. There's still a goal there, and there's still incentive. If you're making a change because you've been threatened, you're going to have cholesterol medicine start up, or have to have you do insulin shots on yourself, that's a definite threat. And if there's no other stressors in life, then that threat will hopefully stay and resonate with you and keep you through your change. I usually will empower people by making specific lifestyle changes for their specific cause and or their specific tastes. Not everybody likes the paleo diet. Not everybody likes going into the Atkins diet. Some people, they have religious duties, so or have preferences. So it all depends on the person. It all depends on the flavor, how they are brought up. Depends on what's available in the local grocery store. Depends on how good they are with cooking. Depends on how many hours a week they work. So all of these things play into it. Even your kids. If you cook very clean, but your kids you have 3 kids and they're very finicky, that's a lot of stress. I would still say you have to cook clean for the kids, but that's not only one problem that you have to tackle, that's 3 other problems you have to tackle. That is a lot of stress. It's going to make you kind of stress and eat or look for, hunt for certain foods that you're not supposed to be eating. So everybody's a little different, bottom line. So usually I'll say if you can't figure it out, get into an integrative medicine doctor and we can kind of sort things out as far as prioritizing. Not everybody has to go straight to bariatric surgery, and sometimes we can give you a break, or I can give a break off of the cholesterol medicine for 3 months and see if it makes a difference. That medicine is sometimes defeating, and that can sometimes be an incentive too. You make the change, I'll keep you off the pill for the rest of your life. But I usually do 3 months at a time, and then I reassess. During that 3-month burst, if you don't have any inspiration to change, there are some things that help keep your appetite down. I have a previous video, and I'll put a link to it, on medicines that help decrease appetite, and they're called anorexics. And also other herbs that have helped to help you get more successful with a change. You always have to manifest some form of change in nutrition. Usually it's portion control. In the United States, our portions are huge. Restaurants want you to come in and they give you doggy bags all the time. That doesn't mean you have to finish everything. You have to know when to push away from the table. You also have to know, if you eat family style and it's just so easy to keep on putting more and more on your plate, you're asking for trouble. If you buy the big Costco brand assorted non-salted nuts and just hold the whole thing open in front of the TV or when you're having a party, it's going to be hard to stop. That's called mindful eating, and that's a practice. It has to be practiced every single day, and you have to kind of think and plan ahead of time. But if you don't know what to do and you go straight to, I'm going to cut down to 500 calories a day, the HCG diet, you might do well on it, but what are you going to do after the 3 months? And your body's going to hunt. I don't think that's a proper thing to do. So whatever the incentive, whatever the threat, I would embrace it, but I also help design something. As your primary care doctor, an integrative primary care doctor, I think it's important to also use coaches. Coaches for activity, and that can be either exercise physiologist, personal trainer, it can be a yoga instructor, it can also be physical therapy if I can find something that's tangibly wrong with your gait, your back, your trunk, a body part. Physical therapy can be involved. Counseling and developing a relaxation program is so important. I think a lot of Americans don't know how to relax. They know how to turn on the stress response, but nobody really practices relaxation. Sometimes if you go to Catholic schools, they will practice relaxation in a form of prayer and grounding beforehand. That's what that's all about. It's to quiet down, get back to your source. Once you get back to your source, or even find your source, it sometimes is, no matter what religion you practice, it's always helpful during times of stress, and that will get things sustainable instead of choking at the last minute because you couldn't continue on your change due to stressors that started up. When you're grounded, it helps you get through that time. Then there's nutrition. So activity, relaxation, and nutrition. I think those are the 3 key elements. So if you have them taken care of, then you're good for at least the jumpstart part. Whether you use prescription medicines or whether you use herbs or whether you enroll yourself in a boot camp, jumpstart, reassess at the 3-month mark. Even if you're doing great, I would still get reassessed. your doctor might want to get you back in for repeat blood tests to see that this is in the right direction, or to make sure, especially if you're on a restrictive diet, that you haven't gone into a little bit of any vitamin deficiencies. That sometimes happens if you're that restrictive. My gluten-free patients, sometimes if you avoid gluten and breads and you don't really embrace cooking whole grains, you might lose out on some of those nutrients, magnesium, zinc, selenium. So it's important to check up again. Get the checkup. After that, you'll replan, refocus for the next 3 months. If you do that in the first year, you're going to be seeing somebody at least every 3 months. That's 4 times a year. If it goes well, then you are on your way. Average patient, and actually in any kind of authored dietary change, paleo, Atkins, Pritikin, even the Ornish, usually at 12 weeks there'll be a fallout. Most people will kind of cut their losses and stop before the 12-month mark, and we find that people either return back into their previous weights or they gain more weight. If you look at the works of Chris Gartner out of California, he studied 3 big diets and had the people that were following the diets actually read cover to cover each book and actually ask questions from a nutritionist, a registered dietitian. And that's a lot of work, but even those folks fell off the wagon after about 12 months. The majority, except for one group. You can watch his video. So that's why it's important to reassess. Once you get to 12 months, then you're probably really good. But this is why I give lectures. My next lecture is pre-season conditioning for my middle-aged folks. That's because most of my middle-aged folks, because it is now springtime, or at least it's nice out, and the snow is melting, and people are outside. I last went to my gym, and it was packed and smelled like sweat. That's because where were all these people before? It's because everybody suddenly had a trigger and an incentive to make a change. They probably had gotten rid of their sweaters and noticed they gained some weight, so they wanted to make some changes. And again, that's okay, but usually that kind of incentive stops after a while. So I would embrace that. If you know anybody, I would embrace that. Tell that person, why don't you now get some personal planning with somebody, either your doctor or the coaches I mentioned, registered dietitian for the nutrition, physical therapist, exercise physiologist, personal trainer, yoga teacher for the activity, then somebody to help with counseling or some meditative coach. I think if you have those coaches in your back pocket, I can use them and they can give me feedback, and then hopefully we can make this change together that'll be lasting and sustainable, instead of short-lived where I see you and you gained weight after you quit and I got to get you on medicines. I don't want to do that, but if we have to, we have to. Bottom line is you got to get assessed first to make sure that you're not in any danger.